Yeah, I'm feeling the love.
You feel the love? Well, what's your name?
Scary Payton, but they call me the glove.
How you feeling tonight?
Yo, I'm feeling the love.
Feel the love, glove?
I'm feeling Sonic. Yo, Sonic! Man, stay off the light speed.
My bad.
Sonic Adventure on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
Hey everybody, Haseo here. I know this isn't my usual intro, but part of the reason that this video's taken so long is because I've always had trouble with doing these on-camera segments, or on-camera in air quotes. You can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes right now. So, rather than scripting out these monologues for me to introduce each episode with and end each episode with, I figured I'd just kinda wing it and let me talk naturally. That way you can get a better idea of what my actual thoughts are instead of having to put them through a filter. This video should not have taken this long, but I ended up having one hell of a past couple months that ended up taking up so much of my time that I couldn't put out anything except for that Misadventures of Tron Bonne video. But, without further ado, it's time for Sonic Adventure. And before we get into Sonic Adventure, some of you that have been watching me for a while might be wondering, hey, haven't you already reviewed this entire part of Sonic's history a couple years ago? The answer is, yeah, but to be honest, I'm not happy with how those reviews turned out. See, when I was starting out, I was trying to be a lot more like really popular reviewers like Nitro Rad, Some Call Me Johnny, Scott the Woz, and as a result, I ended up parroting a lot of their opinions in Sonic, as opposed to speaking what really came from my heart. I was so focused on, I can't be biased by nostalgia, that I ended up going the complete opposite and speaking the polar opposite of what my thoughts on these games were. So, now that I've got that out of the way, I feel like it's time for me to really give this controversial part of Sonic's history the second look it really deserved all those years ago. Be forewarned, there's a lot of history of Sega and console wars that I'm gonna have to cover to put all of this into perspective. So I'm gonna try and give you the most abridged version that I can. Despite the Sonic series becoming the go-to system seller for the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive if you live anywhere outside the States, Sonic had surprisingly little representation on Sega's next console, the Sega Saturn. That's not for lack of trying, however. The Sega Saturn's history is something so bizarre that it deserves its own separate video. But long story short, Sega lagged behind Nintendo and newcomer Sony when it came to 3D games, which were just beginning to overtake the gaming landscape at the time. The Saturn wasn't built with a focus on 3D gaming in mind, which, combined with its odd architecture, made programming for it an absolute nightmare. Sonic Team in Japan was focused on developing new franchises for the Saturn, which left Sega Technical Institute, the American branch behind Sonic 2 and the spin-off game Sonic Spinball, with the task of making Sonic Extreme, intended to be the first truly 3D Sonic game. Another spin-off game, Sonic 3D Blast, had already been released on the Genesis, but that wasn't the game-changer Sega desperately needed to compete with Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot. Sega Technical Institute nearly worked themselves to death trying to get Sonic Extreme out in time for a holiday 1996 release, but it wasn't meant to be. Sonic Extreme was cancelled, and instead, Traveler's Tales ported 3D Blast to the Saturn with enhanced graphics and music to fill its place. Sonic would continue to sit out most of the Saturn's lifecycle, apart from the mediocre Mario Kart competitor Sonic R and the compilation game Sonic Jam. Sonic Jam, however, is where our story really starts. While the main selling point of Sonic Jam was the inclusion of Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles with some enhancements, Sonic Jam also included an explorable 3D hub world dubbed Sonic World. Little did we know that Sonic World was actually a proof of concept for a true 3D Sonic game. However, it quickly became clear to Sega that the Saturn was beyond any hope of saving at this point. So their focus, and with it the development of Sonic Team's new 3D Sonic game, shifted to their next and ultimately final console, the Sega Dreamcast. In 1998, a presentation was shown revealing this then-unknown 3D Sonic game as Sonic Adventure, intended as a launch title for the Dreamcast Japanese launch later that year, as well as its international launch on September 9th, 1999, marketed as 9/9/99. The initial Japanese release is the only version I won't be covering here, as the international version was later released in Japan and became the definitive release of the Dreamcast version. Behind the scenes, Sonic Team put an immense amount of effort into both adapting Sonic and Friends into a 3D space and researching locations to model the game's environments off of. They even flew down to Peru to visit ancient Incan ruins so they could faithfully recreate that visual style for the game's Mystic Ruins world and its included levels. Sonic Team leader Yuji Naka served as producer for Sonic Adventure, with longtime Sonic Team level designer and current Sonic Team head honcho / punching bag Takashi Iizuka serving as director. It was decided early on that Sonic's levels should be focused on adapting the high-speed platforming and momentum-based gameplay of Genesis Sonic into 3D, rather than the Mario 64 approach of reinventing the franchise for new hardware. Knowing that just playing as Sonic would make the game too short for a full-price game in the late 90s, additional characters were added with their own unique gameplay gimmicks and storylines, which, with the addition of fully voiced dialogue for the first time outside of a few obscure arcade games, made Sonic Adventure the most ambitious Sonic game at the time, and in my opinion, more ambitious than what Nintendo offered with Mario 64. Iizuka wanted the game to appeal not only to hardcore Sonic fans, but to newcomers as well, which resulted in the addition of an entire side mode involving raising virtual pets known as Chow, which I will be covering this time because I'm trying not to half-ass this review. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the story. Even though Sonic Adventure has 6 playable characters, only Sonic is unlocked at first. You unlock more characters along with their respective story modes by meeting each character for the first time throughout the campaign. Sonic's story opens with our true blue hero speeding through the city of Station Square, where he sees a squad of police cars heading towards City Hall and decides to follow them. The police have been sent to deal with a seemingly invincible water monster attacking City Hall, but the police, unable to harm it with their guns, flee in terror, leaving Sonic to battle the creature, revealed by Dr. Eggman after the fight to be the water god Chaos. Chaos escapes, and we cut to the next day, where Sonic's relaxation is interrupted by the sight of a plane piloted by Tails crashing on the nearby beach. After Sonic rescues Tails, Tails explains to him that he was testing a prototype Chaos Emerald-powered plane, and invites Sonic to his workshop in the Mystic Ruins. Before they can reach the workshop, however, Sonic and Tails encounter Dr. Eggman.
Silence! I am Dr. Robotnik.
Okay, quick tangent here. The main antagonist of the Sonic franchise was always known as Dr. Eggman in Japan due to his egg-like shape. In the West, however, he was renamed to Dr. Ivo Robotnik, presumably out of fear that Western players wouldn't take well to a villain named Dr. Eggman. From Sonic Adventure onward, the 2 regional names were combined, with the official stance that Dr. Robotnik is his birth name, while Dr. Eggman is more or less his supervillain name. Just to make things easier, I'll be exclusively referring to him as Eggman from now on, because all future games would do the same. After defeating Eggman's Egg Hornet mech, Eggman steals the Chaos Emerald Tails was carrying and summons Chaos. He feeds the emerald to Chaos, causing Chaos to transform. Eggman then reveals that he plans to collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds and use them to unlock Chaos's full power, so he can wipe out Station Square and build his own Eggman Land city on its ruins. Eggman escapes, and Sonic and Tails set off to collect the remaining Chaos Emeralds before Eggman can. This eventually leads to a run-in with Knuckles, who attacks Sonic and demands he hand over the emeralds that he's collected. Knuckles has his own mostly unrelated plot that begins with the Master Emerald shattering into numerous pieces that scatter across the land, which frees Chaos in a mysterious floating ball of light that, for now, I'll refer to as the Guiding Light, and causes Angel Island to fall into the ocean. Knuckles sets off to gather the shattered pieces of the Master Emerald and reconstruct it, which causes him to cross paths with Eggman, who tricks him into thinking Sonic has been gathering the Master Emerald shards as well. Sonic and Knuckles fight, which ends in a draw, with Sonic dropping his Chaos Emeralds, which Eggman quickly steals. With 4 Chaos Emeralds in his possession now, he feeds them to Chaos, and after a boss fight, Eggman calls forth his flying battleship, the Egg Carrier, and uses it to make his escape. Sonic and Tails chase after it in Sonic's Tornado Plane, while Knuckles stays behind to continue collecting Master Emerald pieces, but Sonic and Tails are shot down by the Egg Carrier's laser cannon. The two are split up, which leads to their stories diverging. While Tails spends his time looking for another Chaos Emerald to finish his plane prototype, which leads him to a brief encounter with Big the Cat, whose entire story consists of this bumbling lummox going on a wild goose chase after his pet frog that has swallowed and been possessed by Chaos's tail. Sonic, meanwhile, comes across Amy, who had her own run-in with a bird that escaped the Egg Carrier and is being chased by Zero. No, not that Zero. Yes, that Zero, one of Eggman's robots. After a series of shenanigans that lead Sonic through the local amusement park and the downtown area of Station Square, Amy is captured by Zero and taken aboard the Egg Carrier. Sonic travels through the mountains to chase the Egg Carrier, where Tails picks him up in the new and improved Tornado 2 to once again battle the Egg Carrier. After disabling its weapons, Tails and Sonic crash land on the Egg Carrier because Tails had a brain fart and forgot that the Tornado 2's battle mode doesn't have landing gear. Sonic and Tails travel their way through the Egg Carrier, and meanwhile, Amy is being held in the ship's brig, where she meets Gamma. Gamma was built as part of Eggman's elite E-100 robots to serve as his personal guard on board the Egg Carrier. After impressing Eggman by defeating his older brother Beta and capturing Froggy, Gamma has a traumatizing moment where he sees how Eggman treats his failures, when he comes across a room where Beta is being tortured while still conscious. Back to the main plot, Gamma tries to convince Amy to hand over the bird, but she refuses, and the sight of the bird awakens something deep within Gamma, and he lets both Amy and the bird go free. Eggman stops Amy and the bird's escape, however, and extracts the Chaos Emerald the bird was holding before calling on Gamma to eliminate Sonic. Before Sonic can finish Gamma off, however, Amy pleads with Sonic to spare her new robot friend, which he agrees to. All the fuckery inside the ship has caused it to lose altitude, and Sonic heads after Eggman and Chaos while Tails, Amy, and Gamma make their escape. Sonic and Knuckles finish off Chaos, Sonic chases after the fleeing Eggman, and Knuckles returns to Angel Island to restore the Master Emerald, ending his part of the story. Tails and Amy part ways in Station Square, where Tails sees that Eggman landed there as well. Driven by pure desperation after his plans were thwarted, Eggman launches a missile at the city, which ends up being a dud. Eggman rushes to the missile crash site to detonate it himself. Tails beats him to the missile, defeats Eggman's Egg Walker mech, and saves Station Square, having gained some confidence in the process. Amy notices that the locket that her bird friend is wearing has a picture of his family in it and searches for them, eventually reuniting the bird with its lost family and resolving to be more independent from now on so she can win Sonic's heart. Gamma, meanwhile, overwrites his programming and goes on a roaring rampage of revenge to free the birds trapped in his fellow E-Series robots, culminating in a one-on-one duel with a rebuilt Beta that ends in their mutual destruction, freeing the birds within them, which turn out to be Amy's bird's family. Big, having rescued Froggy from Chaos and Eggman, hijacks the Crash Tornado 2 and returns to his comfortable life in the Mystic Ruins jungle. Lastly, Sonic confronts Eggman in his jungle base and defeats him, thwarting the Mad Doctor's plans once and for all. Peppered throughout each chapter's stories are moments where the guiding light teleports them to the ancient past, where they each witness part of the events that lead to the extinction of the ancient Echidna tribe, which focuses on an Echidna princess named Tikal discovering the Master Emerald Shrine, befriending the Chow that live there along with the Chow Guardian, Tikal's father, Chief Pachacamac, plotting to raid the Emerald Shrine to claim the power of the emeralds for himself and rule the world, and the destruction afterward. All this seems inconsequential at first, but comes into play in the final story campaign, unlocked after beating all 6 previous ones. Angel Island falls out of the sky again, even though the Master Emerald is complete, which Knuckles theorizes might have something to do with the Chaos Emeralds he brought with him. Before he can consult Sonic about them, he sees an injured Eggman who was attacked by Chaos, who's still alive and absolutely pissed. Chaos attacks Knuckles and Eggman and steals the 6 Chaos Emeralds gathered there. In the meantime, Sonic is relaxing once again after defeating Eggman, when Tails informs him that Angel Island has crashed into the ocean. The duo go to investigate, where they come across Knuckles and Eggman, who fill them in on the situation. Eggman leaves to get revenge on Chaos for his disobedience, while Sonic is once again teleported to the past by the guiding light. This time, Sonic witnesses the Echidna tribe launching its attack on the Emerald Shrine, injuring the innocent Chow in the process. This angers the Shrine's guardian, revealed to be Chaos, who uses the power of the Chaos Emeralds to destroy everything. Tikal, in a last-ditch effort to stop Chaos from wiping out all life on Earth, seals herself in Chaos within the Master Emerald. Back in the present, Sonic and Tails look for the Crash Tornado 2, which contains the final Chaos Emerald. However, they're too late, as Chaos beats them to it. With all 7 Chaos Emeralds in his possession, Perfect Chaos wreaks havoc on Station Square in a genuinely harrowing scene that I'll show here in its entirety. Sonic and company witness the destruction Perfect Chaos has caused, and even Eggman's new Egg Carrier Mark II isn't enough to defeat the monster. The guiding light appears before Sonic, revealing herself to be the spirit of Tikal, who goes on to explain that since Perfect Chaos is invincible, she sealed herself in Chaos within the Master Emerald as a last resort to stop him. She urges Sonic to let her seal him once again, but Sonic points out that sealing him away won't solve the root of the problem, which is the anger in Chaos's heart. Chaos ejects the Chaos Emeralds from his body, seemingly draining them of all their power, but every main character shows up to help, with Tails revealing that Chaos has only absorbed the negative energy of the Emeralds to power himself up, and Sonic should still be able to use their true power to defeat the vengeful god, transforming into Super Sonic. After an intense final battle between Super Sonic and Perfect Chaos, Chaos reverts to his base form, having been purified by the positive energy of Super Sonic. The Chao show up to greet their old guardian, and Tikal explains to him that the Chao now live in harmony with mankind, and that he doesn't need to fight anymore. His heart finally at peace, Chaos and Tikal float up into the sky, I guess, never to be seen again.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
All's well that ends well, right?
Tails, the entire city's destroyed! Sonic sees Eggman lurking before escaping, and chases after him, ending the story of Sonic Adventure. The story may seem very complex from how long it took me to sum it up, but that's only because it's a simple stop Eggman and save the day story split between 6 separate scenarios, with some characters not really contributing to the overarching narrative, instead having a story of personal growth and character development. For the first Sonic game to have the plot as a major part of the game, I think this is pulled off decently enough, even if it does play it a bit safe. There's no real mind-bending twists in store or anything that would make you see any of these characters in a different light, but I'm willing to cut it some slack because Sonic Team had never told a story of this scale and scope before, so it's understandable that they'd want to keep it relatively simple compared to, say, Ocarina of Time. I do wish that more time had been spent fleshing out the Ancient Echidna backstory, though. It didn't really have the emotional impact that I think the writers were going for, because we only see a few bite-sized moments of a much larger conflict. I also would have liked an actual explanation for what exactly the Chao are, because they just kind of appear without any proper introduction, which makes it hard to care about what happens to them beyond their cute designs. One aspect that every character's campaign has in common is the presence of hub worlds. 3 of them are on offer here: the metropolitan city of Station Square, the lush cliffsides and jungles of Mystic Ruins, and the Egg Carrier, available in both flying and crash site variations. I've heard a few modern-day reviews of Sonic Adventures say that the hub worlds just pad out the length of the game, but I beg to differ. While you can only access levels from specific areas in the different hubs, it isn't a hassle to find their entrances because all 3 hubs are small and broken up into no more than 2 or 3 main areas each. For example, Station Square has the resort and casino area, the shopping district, and Main Street. The resort area contains the entrances to the Emerald Coast and Casinoopolis areas. Main Street houses Twinkle Park's entrance, and the train station that takes you to the Mystic Ruins hub, and a boat that takes you to the Egg Carrier crash site. Lastly, the shopping district has no levels, but houses a sewer area certain characters can access to either find hidden entrances to other levels, or upgrades to their abilities. The combination of the small hub world size and the focus on breaking them up into a handful of landmarks you can easily find your way to keeps all 3 hub worlds from becoming too frustrating to navigate, and really makes this feel like a more fleshed out world rather than just a series of disconnected levels. Adding to the fun are a few levels that you need to solve simple puzzles to unlock them. One is encountered early on in Sonic and Tails stories, where you need to find a special wind stone next to Tails' workshop, and bring it to a stone pedestal in front of the entrance to Windy Valley to make the gusts of wind underneath blow you all the way up into the level. Hidden in different parts of the hub worlds are upgrades that either power up a character's abilities or grant them new ones. These are usually required for progression at a certain point in the story, but placed in a spot that you can't possibly miss, guaranteeing that you won't have to search high and low for them. For example, later levels in Sonic's campaign require that he have the Lightspeed shoes that grant him the Lightspeed Dash, which allows Sonic to charge up a dash across lines of rings. To make sure that you have it so you aren't gated out of completing the game, the entrance to the Casinoopolis level is blocked behind a trail of rings that you have to use the Lightspeed Dash on, and to suddenly guide you to where the upgrade is found, you'll notice that a car that was previously parked atop the sewer entrance is now gone, allowing you to enter and find the Lightspeed shoes. This approach to upgrades is expertly handled, as it gives you a good practice area more often than not, so you can get used to how your new techniques work before having to put them to use in actual levels, and uses subtle changes in the scenery that guide you to their locations without having to put up a guidepost pointing you to where you need to go. A few upgrades, using Sonic as an example again, are entirely optional, but require you to solve puzzles or find hidden areas on your own to access them. When you first unlock the Lightspeed Dash, it takes a frankly painful amount of time to charge up, but eagle-eyed players may have noticed that the hotel area of Station Square has a pair of switches that generate a trail of rings and open a door on the opposite side of the trail. Put 2 and 2 together, and you'll know to use the Lightspeed Dash to get across before the door closes, which rewards you with the Crystal Ring upgrade that drastically shortens the charge time for the Lightspeed Dash. These optional upgrades offer a great incentive to explore every nook and cranny of the hub worlds and put the abilities you've gained to good and creative use. The last aspect that every character shares in common are emblems. Emblems are awarded to the player after completing a level, completing a higher level challenge in the unlockable trial mode, or finding a few hidden in the hub world maps. There are 130 in total, but sadly they don't unlock anything special in the Dreamcast version. The GameCube version, HD port, and PC version all offer new incentives for 100% completion beyond bragging rights, which I'll delve into later, but even then, they're nothing to write home about, either due to a severe case of bonus feature failure, or the unlockables becoming less significant as time has progressed. Now we get to the fun part, picking apart every character's gameplay style, starting of course with Sonic. Sonic's gameplay is a straight evolution of what we had in the Genesis era, but adapted into a 3D space. Sonic has to get to the end of each level, usually marked by either a Chaos Emerald or the classic Animal Capsule, while collecting rings to stay alive and gain extra lives, and defeating Eggman's robots along the way. Sonic retains his jump attack and his spin dash, now mapped to a separate button, but the developers realized early on that having to either jump on enemies or launch yourself at them at uncontrollably high speeds would spell disaster for new players, so they reached a compromise with what has now become a signature technique in Sonic's arsenal, the homing attack. By pressing the jump button while in the air, Sonic will automatically home in on the nearest enemy, item capsule, or spring, which later levels use to create tricky segments where you have to chain homing attacks over bottomless pits. The homing attack quickly became my go-to way of dealing with enemies, even after I unlocked what I suppose was meant to be a devastating upgrade, the lightspeed attack, which causes Sonic to automatically launch through a trail of enemies after charging up a lightspeed dash. Partly because I didn't trust that move to be safe, and partly because chaining homing attacks across rows of enemies and item capsules is just so much fun. Made even better by how Sonic controls. Sonic can move in a full 360-degree range thanks to the Dreamcast controller featuring an analog stick. He gradually picks up speed as he continues running uninterrupted, just like in the Genesis games, which allows for the player to either take alternate routes only accessible at high speed, like running along walls, or create their own shortcuts by making good use of Sonic's momentum to skip entire platforming segments if you know what you're doing. Sonic's jump feels a bit floaty, but I feel this works in the game's favor. The floaty jump makes it easy to recalibrate your position in midair if you didn't jump at the right angle, allowing you to avoid what would normally be a guaranteed missed jump. Lastly, a few levels have these numbered panels in them that launch Sonic to the next numbered panel when he jumps while standing on one, allowing him to progress through sections by basically wall jumping in context-sensitive spaces. It's clear that Sonic's gameplay received the most focus during the development period, as he has the most levels, the longest stages, and generally the most refined gameplay out of everyone. And it was a brilliant idea to only have him unlocked at the start, because every other character's controls and abilities are built off of the framework laid by Sonic's campaign. The first character you'll unlock is Tails, so let's cover him next. Tails mostly plays similarly to Sonic, but rather than just having to reach the end of the level, he has to race an opponent to the end, which more often than not is Sonic, with Eggman serving as a rival in the final level. To better accommodate a foot race setup, Tails only plays through a short section of each stage. For example, while Sonic travels through 3 areas of Windy Valley, Tails instead just goes through the 3rd section. Tails can fly for a limited time by pressing and holding the jump button in midair, which is improved with higher speeds by the optional jet anklet upgrade, and either roll by pressing the action button while running, attack with a quick tail whip by pressing it while standing still, or, after collecting the rhythm badge upgrade, perform a continuous tailspin attack by holding the action button down. But these are really only used during the occasional boss fight, since the focus in Tails levels is getting to the end as fast as possible, rather than fighting enemies. I would have preferred Tails to have his own unique full-length levels instead of just bite-sized chunks of Sonic's versions, as well as level designs that make better use of Tails' unique abilities. Next up is Knuckles, whose gameplay makes use of his official bio's mention of his treasure hunting hobby. Since his story focuses on his journey to reconstruct the Master Emerald, each of his levels sees him placed in a small, boxed-in area where he's tasked with finding 3 Master Emerald pieces hidden in randomly generated locations. Knuckles retains his ability to glide through the air and climb up walls from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, along with a 3-hit punch move I never used, and the ability to dig underground once he finds the Shovel Claw upgrade. On the bottom of the screen is a radar that uses a hot or cold method to guide you toward the emerald pieces. Once you're in the general vicinity of an emerald shard, the radar turns blue and beeps slowly. As you get closer, the speed of the beeps increases and the color of the radar changes from green to yellow to pink, then finally red, indicating you're right next to the emerald piece. The radar can track all 3 emerald pieces at once, allowing you to collect the emerald pieces in whatever order you wish. If you're still having trouble finding an emerald shard, you can use the various Tikal guiding light orbs placed throughout each stage to point you in the right direction. These orbs are in every character's stories and generally give you hints or tell you where to go next to advance the story, but in Knuckles' level, she flies off in the direction of the nearest emerald piece. While she'll usually do so in a way that Knuckles can't just follow her since she can pass through walls, the direction she flies in still serves as a general pointer for where to go. I feel like Knuckles levels make great use of Knuckles' specific abilities, while also keeping his story from feeling like a diet version of Sonic's, since the focus has shifted from reaching the end to exploring and fighting hidden objects. Amy's levels see her running from zero and solving puzzles to progress until she reaches the end, marked by a golden balloon that you have to grab onto. Amy's levels have wholly unique layouts, and she also has one level that Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles never get to access, the Hot Shelter. Amy can't jump on enemies to defeat them and can't run very fast, so instead she relies on her Pico Pico hammer to stun Zero if he gets too close, break obstacles, and destroy enemies. When running at top speed, she can also use her hammer to perform a high jump. Her upgrades are nothing noteworthy, just a spin attack that requires her to stand completely still to activate it, leaving her completely vulnerable, and a hammer with increased attack range. The constant chases and the occasional breather moments before Zero appears out of nowhere to begin chasing you again, coupled with the slower pace and use of puzzles to gate progression, make this feel like a child-friendly version of a survival horror game like Resident Evil 3 or Clock Tower. Given that Amy was never playable outside of a few racing and fighting game spin-offs, she didn't have a previous moveset to base her gameplay off of, so it obviously required Sonic Team to think outside the box to make her story feel significantly different from the rest, and I applaud Sonic Team for it, as Amy's levels are fun in their own unique way. Big Story has him going on a wild goose chase to catch Froggy, which translates into his gameplay in the most base-breaking way. Rather than platforming, racing, treasure hunting, or puzzle solving, Big's gameplay focuses on fishing, with the level ending when you reel in Froggy. From what I've read, Big's gameplay was meant to serve as downtime during the other, more action-oriented gameplay styles, but whether or not it was pulled off successfully is something I can't definitively say. I've never been good at fishing simulators, and Big's is among them due to clunky controls, questionable mechanics, and a severe lack of variety in stage designs. You position yourself either near the water or, after collecting the life ring upgrade that allows Big to float, sit in the water itself, cast your line, wait for a fish, or ideally Froggy, to bite, and reel in your line without letting your line break, represented by a meter that fills up as it gets closer to breaking. More often than not, I found Froggy ignored my lure entirely, and instead attracted fish I had no desire to catch. Fish seem to instantly attach themselves to your line as soon as they see it, while it's a complete guessing game whether or not Froggy will bite. I can say I didn't enjoy Big's gameplay, but due to my lack of familiarity with fishing simulators, I can't say for sure whether this one is just poorly designed, or if there's something I'm missing. At the very least, Big's story is mercifully short, easily beatable in under half an hour. Gamma's campaign sees him trying to reach the end of each level under a strict time limit to destroy either a target or mini-boss at the end. Gamma doesn't use a jump or melee attack to destroy enemies and obstacles, instead locking onto them with an aiming laser and firing homing shots from his arm cannon when the action button is released. You're encouraged to lock onto multiple enemies at once, as destroying enemies refills your timer, and with the amount it refills by increasing the more enemies you lock onto at once. Gamma can hover across gaps or to slow his descent down vertical shafts once he unlocks the Jet Booster upgrade, but despite this upgrade being required to advance the story, it's rarely incorporated into the level design as something you necessarily have to use to progress. Rather, it's used to make platforming more comfortable, or to let you dodge certain attacks. Gamma also goes through a mode change transformation when he runs uninterrupted long enough, which sees him crouch down and activate his wheels to move faster, or activate a propeller to hover over water, but once again, no level makes use of these mechanics as something required to progress. I do like Gamma's more arcade shooter-like gameplay, but I just wish more of his unique abilities were put to use, because as it is, every level just feels like a palette swap of each other. Lastly, we have Supersonic's gameplay, which is limited to the final battle with perfect chaos. Just like in the Genesis game, Supersonic is invincible to all attacks, and loses rings every second he's transformed. As you have to stay transformed to avoid sinking into the water and dying, the challenge comes from maintaining a decent ring count because collected rings don't respond, dodging Chaos's attacks that stun and slow down Supersonic, and maintaining top speed to actually damage Chaos, as ramming him at anything below top speed will just cause him to eject Supersonic from his body without dealing damage, wasting precious time. I feel like there was a basis for a fantastic climactic final battle here, but the combination of cramped, claustrophobic arena design that makes it too easy to accidentally lose speed, coupled with a strict limit on how many rings are available and the occasional collision hiccups that cause Supersonic to lose his top speed for no apparent reason, make this fight a bit too tedious to be truly enjoyable. Now, even though I've covered every character's unique gameplay style, we still have a few more aspects to cover before we're done. Most stories have at least one minigame section in them. Ice Cap Zone and Sonic and Tails stories, alongside Sand Hill and Tails' story only, feature a snowboarding minigame where you have to outrun an avalanche and board your way down the slopes to reach the end. You can launch yourself off of ramps to perform aerial tricks that increase your top speed upon landing, and allow you to take alternate pathways to reach the end faster. Unfortunately, I found the snowboard controls to be a bit slippery, making it hard to precisely move your character. Then again, I don't have much experience with playing snowboarding games, my only other point of reference being Cool Borders 2 for PS1, a game I absolutely suck at, so perhaps it's a problem with me. Twinkle Park houses a go-kart racing minigame where you have to complete 3 laps in the shortest time possible. All characters can access this after completing the game, but the controls and track layout remains the same across all of them. I found this to be hard to control, as your cart's acceleration is through the roof. The only way to make the required tight turns is to lay off the gas for a brief second, and the track didn't feel like it was made with the cart's stiff controls in mind. Sonic and Tails stories both feature 2 Sky Chase minigames where the player controls the tornado while shooting down Eggman's fighters and weaponry while dodging incoming attacks. You can hold down the shoot button to lock on to multiple targets at once, which I found the most effective, or rapidly press the fire button to use the tornado's machine gun. These segments are short, inoffensive, and despite requiring 4 total playthroughs of the exact same 2 stage layouts, don't overstay their welcome. One thing I noticed at the end of the first Sky Chase was that these minigames don't feature Sonic's new modern design, instead reusing his 3D classic design from the Sonic World mode of Sonic Jam. Sonic's version of Casinoopolis features 2 pinball minigames that merge traditional pinball gameplay and gambling. There's slot pinball, where the player has to launch Sonic into the slot machine in the center, and then try to line up 3 of the same icon to get more rings. I suck at this. The other option, and the one I vastly prefer, is card pinball, where Sonic has to collect a hand of 5 cards featuring characters from Nights into Dreams, a Sega Saturn game made by Sonic Team, and try to match up as many as possible, with different ring rewards depending on the value of your hand. Lastly, Amy's story features a whack-a-mole minigame called Hedgehog Hammer, where you have to beat Eggman's high score to progress with the story early on, and beating certain score thresholds rewards you with Amy's 2 upgrades. I found this to be downright infuriating to beat the second high score challenge on, because the rate that the targets appear and disappear at is faster than I can react to, and more importantly, faster than the animation of Amy's hammer swing. Whether the targets will instantly retract upon appearing or wait around a while seems to be up to the random number god, along with whether or not you'll get a decent string of targets to hit. I had several instances where there was nothing at all to hit while the timer continued counting down, making me lose by no fault of my own. I eventually discovered that using the otherwise useless spin move here breaks this minigame in half, but I'm not sure if that was by design or by oversight. The presentation in Sonic Adventure is, well, it's a mixed bag to put it lightly, partly due to the inherent roughness of early 3D games and partly due to downright incompetence. The models for the playable characters look great, featuring the more detailed designs given to them by artist Yuji Uekawa, but retaining the stocky, cute proportions of the Genesis-era artwork by Naoto Oshima, ultimately culminating in a sort of transitionary look to ease longtime fans into the new aesthetic of Sonic without overwhelming them with a radical design that barely resembles the original. The NPC character models, on the other hand, leave something to be desired. The humans that populate Station Square all look like Barbie dolls, and Eggman is extremely limited in both movements and expressiveness. The texture work is fantastic for the era, both for the character models and the environments. Animal characters feature a kind of grainy texture on their models to make it look more like real fur, as opposed to the more smooth, plasticky texture that would come to dominate the latter part of the Adventure era. The Mystic Ruin stands out as the most visually impressive environment due to the use of actual photographs the members of Sonic Team took during their scouting trips to Central and South America as environmental textures, making the ground and especially the stone structures look more realistic. The game runs at a mostly smooth 30 frames per second, which went to show just how much of a leap the hardware of the Dreamcast was compared to the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64, whose games often ran at 20 FPS due to hardware limitations. I rarely noticed any frame drops throughout all the campaigns, which, for a game initially released in 1998 and the first fully 3D Sonic game, is quite the accomplishment. Overall, the game looks great and performs well, until you get to the cutscenes. Cutscene animations are weirdly rigid and stiff, with characters often abruptly shifting between poses and animations, rather than having a smooth transition between them. Outside of a few pre-rendered FMV cutscenes that look fantastic for the era, most of the game's cutscenes are made inside the in-game engine, and as a result, they look bizarre and occasionally hilarious, not helped at all by the voice acting and the facial animations. For the first time in the series, outside of a few obscure arcade games, Sonic and friends have spoken dialogue available either in Japanese or English. As I'm a native English speaker with next to no knowledge of Japanese, I can't comment on the Japanese voice acting, but the English voice acting suffers from poor direction across the board. While a few of the cast members, namely Ryan Drummond as Sonic and Dean Bristow as Eggman, stand out as sounding better than the rest of the cast, their line deliveries keep the hamminess at a constant 10, making it hard to take anything seriously. Couple this with facial animations that cause the characters to suddenly sprout mouths from nowhere and contort their entire faces in unnatural ways, or in Eggman and Big's cases, just gesture wildly as they for some reason lack mouth animations entirely, give off the feeling that you're looking at a rough cut of an animation student's first 3D animation project rather than something officially made by a team at Sega. There's an obvious reason why lines such as
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
and
Oh no!
and of course
Get a load of this!
have become memes in the past decade. The soundtrack, unlike the voice acting and cutscene animations, is consistently amazing across the board. Composed by Crush 40 guitarist and co-founder Jun Senoue, one of my favorite video game composers and favorite underrated guitarists, each segment of each level features a unique composition comprising a wide variety of genres, from rock to orchestral music to tribal chants to even some remixes of previous Sonic tracks in a few sections. Each character has their own unique theme song, mostly vocal tracks about either their character motivation or their general personality, with a couple of instrumental themes as well. Most of these are instantly catching earworms, especially Sonic's theme, It Doesn't Matter by Tony Harnell, Knuckles' theme, Unknown from ME by Hunted P and Marlon Saunders, and Tails' theme, Believe in Myself by Karen Brake. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Amy's theme, My Sweet Passion by Nikki Gregoroff, which is so saccharine and poppy that makes me desperately seek out the nearest death metal song to cleanse my palate. In general, the music in Sonic Adventure is far more experimental than previous Sonic games, and ultimately results in a soundtrack that not only keeps you pumped and energized during gameplay, but is also fun to listen to on your own time. There's a minor incentive to replay old stages in minigames thanks to Trial Mode, where each character's levels in minigames can be replayed with additional challenges for completion, which rewards the player with more emblems for completing them. For example, while the story version of Emerald Coast just requires Sonic to reach the end, the Rank B challenge will make him reach the end while holding on to at least 50 rings. However, since there's no rewards for collecting all of the emblems beyond being able to say you did it, at least in the Dreamcast version, I don't see any reason to bother with these. One last major aspect of Sonic Adventure that I neglected to cover in my original review out of sheer laziness was a feature that made its debut here that quickly became a fan favorite. Yes, I'm talking about the Chow Garden, which is less of a minigame and more of an entire secondary mode on its own bundled in with Sonic Adventure. By exploring specific areas of the hub world maps, you can find entrances to one of 3 Chow Gardens. Here you'll find eggs that hatch into cute little critters called Chow, who you're tasked with raising by feeding them fruit and giving them animals collected in levels that enemies drop upon defeat. Giving a Chow an animal causes them to take on the features of that animal, raising their stats according to what kind of animal you gave to them, and making them physically change to resemble the animal they've been given. Chow basically start off as newborn babies crawling on the floor and unable to swim, but raising their stats causes them to gradually evolve, which results in them walking upright, swimming through water with no trouble, and becoming more inquisitive of their surroundings. When their stats are raised high enough, you can enter them in Chow races, where the Chow you've entered is pitted against 7 other Chow, all controlled by the game's AI, in a race to the end of the course that puts all their stats and skills to the test, rewarding you with an emblem after winning. I didn't win a single race. Also, the hub where you enter the Chow races features the first appearance of
Dios mío, la criatura.
If you have enough free space on one of the Dreamcast's VMU memory cards, a unique hybrid of memory card and a handheld console that had a built-in real-time clock and calendar, as well as a screen and buttons to play minigames, you can transfer a Chow to the VMU to play Chow Adventure, where you carry your Chow with you and it occasionally talks to you. Chow Adventure serves as a way to get unique items to raise your Chow's stats, but I quickly lost interest before the first event happened because of how long I had to wait for anything to take place. You can also link up your Chow with another friend's VMU to make them battle, but I didn't have a way of testing this. Good luck finding someone with a Dreamcast, Sonic Adventure, and a VMU in your area to try this out with. It also takes up an absurd 128 blocks of space on the VMU's memory, which required me to search for a second VMU just for testing this out because I didn't have enough space on my primary one. There's a lot more to the Chow side mode than I could theoretically cover here, like life cycles, breeding, color variations, and reincarnation, but doing so would keep you here even longer. Plus, certain features are no longer available because they required a dial-up connection, and even if you do manage to rig up a way to connect your Dreamcast to the internet, the official servers have been down for decades anyway, so that limited the scope of what I could cover here. Jumping ahead a bit in our Sonic and Sega timeline, Sega would officially leave the console business after 2001 due to a history of blunders that ate away at Sega's goodwill and initial market dominance, culminating in the Dreamcast being Sega's last console and a short-lived one at that. Sega would restructure itself as a third-party developer for the new big three of console gaming, Sony with the PlayStation 2, Nintendo and their GameCube, and newcomer Microsoft with the original Xbox. In addition to developing new games for these three new consoles, Sega would port parts of their Dreamcast catalog to the GameCube, with Sonic Adventure seeing an enhanced port to Nintendo's beloved Lunchbox in 2003 under the new title Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. This port would later see its own updated ports to more modern consoles and PCs as time went on, for better or for worse. Rather than simply bringing the unaltered Dreamcast version to a new console, Sonic Adventure DX saw numerous changes to its graphics and performance in an attempt to both bring the visuals more in line with the then current character designs and make this the definitive version of Sonic Adventure. In theory, it's an obviously spectacular idea, but in practice, it's extremely hit or miss. The character models have been remade from the ground up, with new designs that more closely resemble Yuji Uekawa's artwork and feature a higher polygon count, with a few glaring exceptions. Eggman looks identical to his Dreamcast design, making him look jarringly out of place with the rest of the main cast. Whether or not these new models are an improvement or a downgrade is up to you, but personally, I prefer the texture work of the original Dreamcast models. DX's models feature flat textures that make everyone look like action figures rather than animals. Some of the level environments have seen random changes to their textures or models as well, such as the walkway added to the grass in Twinkle Park, or the smooth transition from the end of Speed Highway to the front of Town Hall in Station Square being ruined by the Town Hall building being completely changed without also changing the building that serves as the level exit. The cutscenes have seen no improvements whatsoever, still retaining the same cheesy voice acting and janky animations, but now the sound mixing is noticeably worse. Voice files are of a much lower quality, and the music often drowns out the dialogue and sound effects. I have no idea how the team behind the port could have messed this up, but what wasn't improved still looks bad, and what was changed was made objectively worse. Also, Cream the Rabbit from Sonic Advance 2 makes a short appearance in Sonic and Tails stories as the one that presumably drops the ice key needed to access the ice cap level, but nothing is really made of her inclusion. Due to the more powerful hardware of the GameCube, Sonic Adventure DX runs at smooth 60 frames per second as opposed to the Dreamcast 30, which is definitely an improvement. Also added were a first-person view that controls like shit, and the option to skip cutscenes if you wish. Among these additions, however, a whole menagerie of bugs have been added as well. I had so many physics and collision issues that were never present in the Dreamcast version, like this ramp I kept clipping through in Emerald Coast, downright broken pinball physics in Casinopolis, and multiple instances in Skydeck where I got stuck on nothing. As if that wasn't enough, the smooth 360-degree movement of the Dreamcast version has been axed and replaced with clunky 8-way movement, making it much harder to move precisely when you have so many dead zones between directions the game actually recognizes. While the improved frame rate is an obvious plus, I can't ignore just how glitchy and occasionally broken this version is, and it drags down the overall experience. To add more replay value, Sonic Team added a new mission mode for each character upon completing their respective stories, where the player has to explore the hub world maps to find cards that unlock specific tasks for them to complete in either the hub world or within levels. For example, this one requires me to grab the statue placed outside the diner and bring it to the target. Most of these are relatively simple, but a few left me scratching my head due to some poor translation choices. There are 100 in total to complete, so there's plenty to keep the completionists out there occupied. Collecting emblems is given a new significance thanks to another new addition. Every 20 emblems you collect, or every 20 missions you complete in mission mode, you unlock a Game Gear game to play from the minigames menu on the title screen. Completing everything in the game unlocks a Metal Sonic skin you can use over Sonic's model in trial mode, but I wasn't about to put in all that effort just for a model swap. The unlockable Game Gear games include every single Sonic game released on Sega's failed handheld console, including 2 that were previously only released in Japan, Sonic Drift and Tails Sky Patrol. Now you too can discover why nobody has nostalgia for Game Gear Sonic. Alternatively, you could either emulate them, or if you want to play them officially, buy the Sonic Gems Collection and Sonic Mega Collection Plus compilations that, combined, have the whole series across both titles. While the additions and tweaks to the game were extremely hit or miss, one radical change that I can say unambiguously improved something from the Dreamcast version was the revamped Chow Garden. The Chow Garden, while certainly advanced for its time in the Dreamcast version, was later outclassed by the improvements made to it in Sonic Adventure 2, and the DX version carries over some of those improvements. The Chow now have new, higher poly models and more advanced AI, as well as branching evolutions based on their primary stat and the addition of Sonic Adventure 2's Hero Chow and Dark Chow evolutions. A shop system has been added as well, allowing the player to use their collected rings to buy special fruit, items, and even unique Chow eggs to add to their garden. The last notable change is that due to the GameCube obviously lacking compatibility with the Dreamcast VMUs, Chow Adventure has been replaced with connectivity between Sonic Adventure DX's Chow Garden and the Game Boy Advance Sonic games. By connecting your Game Boy Advance with a GameCube link cable into one of the controller ports, the player can send one Chow to either Sonic Advance 2, or Sonic Pinball Party's Tiny Chow Garden subgame, a stripped-down version of the Chow Garden that can only house one Chow and doesn't allow breeding or evolutions, but features unique items and eggs you can transfer over, as well as a couple minigames you can play to earn more rings. Long story short, when you hear Sonic fans saying they're nostalgic for the Sonic Adventure Chow Garden, it's most likely the DX version that they're talking about, due to the quality of life improvements and enhancements carried over from Sonic Adventure 2. In 2010, the GameCube version was ported to Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 as Sonic Adventure HD. This HD remaster carries over everything added and changed in the GameCube version, warts and all, while also surprisingly downgrading the audio even more, messing up the lighting engine, resulting in everything having a shiny, reflective look, and adding even more glitches on top of the ones DX added. The environmental textures were also noticeably pixelated from poor upscaling. To add insult to injury, the Chow Garden saw some nerfs, with any kind of handheld minigame cut, and the Chow Transporter replaced with a naming machine. I tried to name this one Ronginald, but that wouldn't fit, so his name is Rongina. On top of that, the Game Gear minigames were made completely inaccessible despite staying in the game code, and mission mode was put behind a paywall, but thanks to Game Gear games being effectively cut, there's no reason to play it in the first place. The game isn't even in widescreen, instead displaying a small window with blue borders. This reeks of a lazy cash grab. The most recent Sonic Adventure port was to Steam in 2011. While it retains the problems inherent to the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 version, but with a proper 16:9 aspect ratio, this is the version I'd actually recommend you play, aside from the Dreamcast original, thanks to the frankly impressive modding community. With one of 2 total conversion mod programs known as Better SADX and SADX Mod Installer, most if not all of the Dreamcast version can be restored while retaining the higher resolutions, widescreen, and frame rate of the base PC version, alongside tons of other mods that improve the game even more. My footage here has me playing with a combination of mods that restore the original Dreamcast assets and upscale the textures using an AI upscaling program that make it look gorgeous, restoring high-quality audio and better sound mixing of the Dreamcast version, and even restoring my beloved 360-degree movement controls. These mod programs even restore the Game Gear games from the GameCube version, but make them unlock by default. Sonic Adventure was a landmark title for Sega's farewell console, and for the most part, an excellent attempt at converting a traditionally 2D series into the burgeoning world of 3D gaming, but it's not without its hiccups. The base Dreamcast version lacks any incentive for 100% completion, some of the gameplay styles could have done better, and the cutscene animations and voice acting were bad for the time and have aged like milk in the intervening 2 decades. While Sonic Adventure was received favorably by the fanbase and the general gaming public back in 1999, There's been a noticeable shift in the public opinion about Sonic Adventure, thanks in no part to the more readily available DX version that's mostly a major step down compared to the excellent Dreamcast original, and personalities like IGN and the Game Grumps acting as though the game was never good in the first place when they only played what was objectively the worst version of the game. If I had to recommend any version to play to get a good understanding of why the Sonic fanbase still loves Sonic Adventure to this day, I'd obviously recommend the Dreamcast version above all others, but I'm well aware that finding a working Dreamcast and a cheap copy of Sonic Adventure is getting harder and harder as the years go by, and Dreamcast emulation is still very much a work in progress. My next recommendation would be the Steam version, with the mod programs I mentioned to fix the issues inherent to the DX version and its various ports. Normally I wouldn't give a PC game praise just due to its modding community, but they really salvaged an otherwise terrible port of a classic game, and Sonic Adventure on Steam can frequently be found for $5 or less thanks to it frequently going on sale. Avoid the GameCube and especially the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions at all costs, as they're beyond saving with currently available technology. Sonic Adventure was a critical and financial success when it came out back in 1999, and seeing both this and the fact that the Dreamcast was clearly not meant for this world, even though it was a great console, the PlayStation 2 was on the horizon, Sega was nearing bankruptcy from failure after failure that left them in a spot where if they were to have another failed console, they would just cease to exist. So they decided, we're going to put out one last banger of a title to send out our final console with a 10th anniversary Sonic title that pulls out all the stops. Tune in next time when we take a look at Sonic Adventure 2, as well as its GameCube port, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and that version's ports to HD consoles and PCs. I'm Haseo, thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one. Laters. If you like this video and want to see more from me in the future, make sure to hit subscribe and click the notification bell, otherwise YouTube will most likely not let you know when I upload. I'm planning on going to more frequent uploads now that I have more free time, so hopefully that Sonic Adventure 2 re-review won't take too long to get out. I'm now more active on Twitter, as well as a new Instagram account if you want to keep up with my goings-on there. Although I'm not as active on Instagram because I'm still learning how to use that site. I've created a new schedule where I'm streaming on Twitch every Friday, so check me out on there at 8 PM Eastern Time, so you can see me play through whatever comes to mind, usually something that belongs in the trash. If you want to help feed the Eldritch God algorithm to make sure that more people see this video, leave a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, share this video around so it can get the engagement up. God knows I could really use it. Finally, if you want to see some non-gaming review stuff from me, I've got an archive channel where I've got my stream archives as well as where I'll be uploading non-game review content, SBG Haseo 2, which I'll link in the end card. I'm Haseo, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Laters.